Welcome back to English 4.0, the radio show. Let's go! Intermediate. All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. Welcome to Intermediate, class number 173. And here we are looking at something interesting here. Yesterday we saw the word to and also as well in the sense of también. So I live in Spain and Fitz lives in Spain as well. Fitz lives in Spain too. It's the same. You can say either one. Yes, I teach English and Leila teaches English as well. I teach English and Alberto teaches English too. We teach English and Carly and Natasha, well, they teach English too. I work for Vaughan Systems and Richard Brown works for Vaughan Systems too. Yes. I have a radio show. Leila has a radio show too. Yes, Hannah has a radio show as well. It's called East Meets West. Leila's radio show is Kids Time. Alberto has a radio show too. In fact, he has two radio shows. He has a show called Everyday English and a show called The Show with No Name. He has two radio shows. I have two radio shows too. I have this show and I have the Verb Circus too. I have this show and I have the Verb Circus as well. I host this show and I host the Verb Circus as well. This show is on Vaughan Radio. My other show is on Vaughan Radio as well. It's on Vaughan Radio too. Okay? So, too, in the sense of también. We can also say as well. All right? No problem. The other thing we saw yesterday, we saw the phrasal verb to grow up. Criarse, hacerse mayor, en el sentido de convertirse en adulto. I grew up in Canada. As you know, if you listen to my program, I grew up in Canada. I grew up in a small town. I grew up in the province of Nova Scotia. But I didn't grow up in the town that I was born in. I was born in a town called Digby. I was born on the coast. Well, I grew up on the coast as well, but I grew up in a different town. So to grow up is essentially to, we say, like, become an adult, to pass through your youth and to become an adult. I grew up in a town called Liverpool, but I didn't grow up in Liverpool, England. I grew up in Liverpool, Canada. Another thing that's worth mentioning is in Canada and in the United States, we say the name, well, in the case of Canada, we have provinces. So I'm from the province of Nova Scotia. And I would say I grew up in Liverpool, Nova Scotia, Canada. Whereas in Spain, you say Madrid, Spain. You don't say the name of the province. But in Canada, a lot of the provinces are bigger than European countries. I mean, the province of Ontario, you can spend 3 days driving across the one province in Canada, the province of Ontario. It's huge. So it's almost like a country. We say Toronto, Ontario, Liverpool, Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's where I went to university, Halifax, Nova Scotia. So we usually say the city or the town and then the province. And the same happens in the United States. You say Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, San Francisco, California, right? Orlando, Florida. You say the name of the city and then the state, typically. But I see that a lot. People in publications, they'll say Toronto, Canada. But a Canadian would never say that. A Canadian would always say Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So just a difference there in the terminology that is used. But yes, I grew up in a small town. I grew up in a town called Liverpool. And I also mentioned the way we say in English we say hometown. My hometown is really the town that I grew up in. I grew up in Liverpool. Your hometown is really the town that you spend the majority of your youth in. I grew up in Liverpool. My hometown is Liverpool. I wasn't born there, but it's my hometown. In English, we would say that, whereas I think a lot of people in Spain would say that their hometown is where they were born. But for us, it's not necessarily the case. So to grow up. I grew up in a small town. I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of close friends. I still go back there. I still go back to the neighborhood that I grew up in. Most of my close friends are still there. Well, the families, at least. Their parents are still there. The people of my generation have moved away, but the families are still there. And when I go back at Christmas time, I get to see all my old friends. Christmas time is very important. It's, for me, the most important time of the year. For me to go home at Christmas is essential. I get to see all my friends. I get to see them. To get to here, as in the sense of to have the opportunity to. I get to see my friends. I get to see friends that I don't get to see during the rest of the year. So, yeah, this is an interesting structure, to get to, as in to have the opportunity to. Spain is wonderful. I enjoy living here, but I don't get to see my family very often. I don't get to see my old friends. I get to practice Spanish. I get to eat great Spanish food, but I don't get to see my friends, my Canadian friends, very often. When I go back to Canada, I get to see them, but I don't get to speak Spanish. I don't get to practice my Spanish. I don't get to see my Spanish friends, and I don't get to enjoy Spanish food back in my hometown. So, my hometown, we were talking about the phrasal verb to grow up, and I'm glad that I grew up where I did. I like my hometown. I'm glad that I grew up there. It was a nice place to grow up. All right, let's move on now and take a look. Let's see, what do we have now? Let's hear our jingle to tell us what we're going to look at now. Word of the day. Yes, that's right. It is time for the word of the day. And our word of the day is, in Spanish, ciervo. In English, we say deer. Deer. D-E-E-R. Deer. Deer. Yes, a lot of people in my area, in my hometown where I grew up, go hunting for deer. There are a lot of deer in the area. Now, it's interesting. We say one deer, two deer. We don't say deers. It's interesting, but yes, deer. So we pluralize that simply by saying deer. Deer, deer. Two deer. One deer, two deer. Okay, but I don't like to hunt. I've never gone hunting. I like to fish, but I don't hunt. So I've never shot a deer. But I do like deer meat. It's quite tasty. Deer meat, I must say. So deer, ciervo, like Bambi. Well, yeah, like Bambi is a deer. And at Christmas time, we have the reindeer that pulls Santa Claus's sleigh. The reindeer. Dasher. Let's see if I can name the reindeer. I think there are 8. Dasher and Dancer, Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid, Donner and Blitzen. Well, that's 8. But no, there is a 9th one, the most important reindeer of all. It is Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, we say. And so there you go, 9 famous reindeer that, according to the legend, pull Santa Claus's sleigh through the night sky on Christmas Eve every year. Christmas Eve, December 24th, Christmas Eve. Now, as we move on into class number 173, we see here have versus have got. again. That's right. Kyle, we just saw that. We saw that 2 days ago. Well, you're right. We saw it 2 days ago. We practiced it 2 days ago. And I was encouraging you to use the simple have structure. I have a book. I don't have a book. I have time. I don't have time. I have a pen. I don't have a pen. And in the past, yesterday, I had a book. Yesterday, I didn't have a book. And this is where, well, the past, for example, is where this simple have structure is more versatile, proves to be more versatile because we can use it in the past. Whereas the have got structure, we have to use in present simple. I've got a pen. Okay, but yesterday, I had a pen. We don't say I had got a pen. No. It doesn't work. But if you think of have as a simple verb and treat it like any other verb other than the verb to be, we add an auxiliary verb in the question and in the negative, and it always works. But if you choose to use this have got structure, that's fine. You can do that. But remember that it doesn't work in the past, for example. So let's focus here on converting some sentences from the have got form to the have form. So first, tengo un coche nuevo. I've got a new car. Personally, I wouldn't say that. I would say, I have a new car. No tenemos tiempo. We haven't got time. In the simple structure, we don't have time. ¿Tienen un problema? Have they got a problem? And the simple structure, do they have a problem? Do they have a problem? Okay, so now changing from the have got into the have form, have they got a new one? Do they have a new one? Have they got more than us? Do they have more than us? I think we've got more than 50 people working in the office. I think we have more than 50 people working in the office. She said they've got an old guitar in the basement. She said they have an old guitar in the basement. He thinks he's got the answer. He thinks he's got the answer. And in the simple form, he thinks he has the answer. Okay, so remember this have got structure can only be used in the present. So the past of I have got is not I had got, but rather simply I had. Let's move on now and take a look at our vocabulary of the day. Vocabulary of the day. All right, it is time for the vocabulary of the day, our 5 words of vocabulary. The first word is tarifa. Tarifa, which is a fare. Fare, F-A-R-E. Frente, la frente, on your head, is your forehead. Forehead, F-O-R-E-H-E-A-D. Forehead. Impulsivo. Impulsivo, this is impulsive. 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 En común. In común, we say in common. Yes, Alberto and I have something in common. We both host a radio show. I host a radio show, and he hosts a radio show too, like we said at the start of the show. Minoría. Minoría, this is minority. Minority. Native English speakers are a minority here in Madrid. Yes, a minority. All right, we have one more thing to do, and that is to practice with the verb to ask, which is pedir, or also preguntar. So when we say pedir algo, or preguntar por algo, is to ask for. I'd like to ask for a glass of water. He's asking for silence. They're asking for world peace, to ask for something. Okay? And when we have an indirect object, we place it between the ask and the for. I asked him for a cigarette. Le pedí a él un cigarro. Le pedí I asked him for a cigarette. I asked him for a cigarette. On the other hand, when we say to solicitar algo, bueno, solicitar hacer algo, pedir que alguien haga algo. En inglés usamos el verbo to ask plus infinitive. Well, really, I should say to ask someone to infinitive. To ask someone to I'm going to ask the waiter to bring the bill. Ask him to bring the bill. Ask him to do it. Ask him to help us. Ask her to drive us there. Yes, maybe I'll ask my mother to drive us to the cinema, for example. So, give me an affirmative answer. Are you going to ask for the bill? Yes, I'm going to ask for the bill. Are you going to ask for it politely? Yes, I'm going to ask for it politely. Did you ask for help? Yes, I asked for help. Did you ask an expert for it? Yes, I asked an expert for it. Did you ask me a question yesterday? Yes, I asked you a question yesterday. Okay, now we can try a little bit of translation here. Yeah, translation. Everybody loves translation. ¿Me estás haciendo una pregunta? Are you asking me a question? Le pedí salir ella. Here we say, I asked her out. To ask someone out. John hace más preguntas que su hermana. John asks more questions than his sister. Yes. ¿Vas a pedir la cuenta? Are you going to ask for the bill? ¿Vas a pedir la cuenta? Are you going to ask for the bill? Todo lo que pido es comprensión. All I ask for is understanding. Right? And all I ask for is that you work hard and do your best. But ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. But I would ask you to please join me again tomorrow at the same time, and I will ask you also to do your best and keep studying hard, following the classes on television and here on the radio, following along in your student guide at home. And don't be afraid to ask me any questions that you may have, because that's what I'm here for. voningles.com or through the website vonradio.com as well. You can write in feedback. There's a little area there. Feel free to send me a message. Say, this is for Kyle of the 4.0 radio show. I'll do my best to answer you. Let's finish there because we're completely out of time, but thanks for listening, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.